1977, the interesting part of this thing, the school board was really upset. We had never won a state championship in baseball or basketball or football, and they were really trying to encourage people to get out there and win. Well, they didn't know anything about the Science Olympiad, but I invented this thing, went out to Dell State, and we won the state championship, and the school board went nuts. They were so happy that we had a state champion in Delaware. So that's how it all kind of got started. Well, personally, there's no question it had an impact on me and helped me, I think, become a better teacher. Certainly became much better at working with other teachers around the state of Delaware. And I think Science Olympiad has permitted all these teachers to get involved and learn more for themselves and become better at teaching the kids. Where do I see it going in the future? I think it's going to expand, hopefully, as we get further down the road. I really enjoyed it, and I still occasionally run into kids at church and other places that they don't live around here anymore, but they come back home to see their parents or whatever, and they'll stop by to say hello.
When and how I first got involved with the Science Olympiad, that would have to do with Jack. Jack was a science supervisor in the state of Delaware. I was a science teacher in the state of Delaware, and he was looking for volunteers to help with the National Olympiad in the first few years that it started. He would ask various teachers to come to the National and help proctor an event or come up with questions for an event or that kind of thing. After I had done a number of different events, they asked me to work in headquarters, and so I sort of became the gatekeeper at headquarters. I can think of one kid in particular who was very, very, very shy, and it was hard to get him to say a word. And he got involved with the team, and I don't even remember how. I think he just decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And it just absolutely brought him out of his shell. And he went on in the rest of his high school years, not only being in the Olympiad, but went on to do the school musicals and got on stage, and just, it really caused a profound change in him because he realized that he could be accepted, and that was one of the experiences, I think, that made me most appreciative of what an outside activity like the Science Olympiad could do for kids. And you hear more and more about kids that go into high-level sciences after having been involved in the Science Olympiad and really do great things in the world of science. One of the reasons it's persisted is that it has a leadership team that just is astounding in their leadership. Jenny carries on the legacy of her father and her mother, who, along with Jack, brought this thing to fruition and just weren't going to let it go, weren't going to let anything get in the way of this taking place, and the contests continuing and the whole concept of the Olympiad continuing. They branched out to present workshops so that other teachers who had never heard of it before could learn about it and learn how it could benefit their students. I certainly don't think it's going to go away. And probably one of the things that testifies to that is that it survived COVID. A lot of things didn't survive COVID. A lot of things didn't come back. People just sort of threw up their hands. And like I said, this tenacious group of leaders weren't going to let that happen.
I think that Science Olympiad has a tremendous effect on the teams, on the kids that are participating in a team. It lets the science kids get the same feeling of camaraderie that the football teams always had. They're bigger than themselves because they're part of something. They're working with other kids who they may not have known at all before to accomplish standing in a competition. Personally, I've received tremendous enjoyment over the past 35 years in working with groups of kids very intensely, coaching anything, whether it's Science Olympics or a sport, is a little bit, it's different than classroom teaching in that you work much more intensely with a much smaller group of kids. I just enjoyed the heck out of it. I enjoyed coaching the teams immensely. Later on, I enjoyed running tournaments at my home school. I enjoyed being a state director for about 15 years in Connecticut, and I enjoy the heck out of writing national events for Road Scholar that I've been doing for a long time.
I got involved with Science Olympiad in 1990, 34 years ago, as the parent of our oldest son, Alan Chalker, when he was a freshman in high school. With our younger children coming up behind, I ended up starting a middle school Science Olympiad team in 1996. People say, when are you going to retire? And I said, the last thing I probably will do on my breath, it'll probably be Science Olympiad. It gives the students the opportunity to explore different fields of science. It expands their knowledge in various areas that they may not even known that they were interested in. That also gives them the opportunity to learn to work together as a team. I love seeing the kids bloom. They're just blossom. And I love the aha moments that we see with the kids when they go to a competition. Because I think Science Olympiad has persisted over these last 4 years because they stay true to their core values as being an exceptionally strong program for all students. My wish for Science Olympiad in the future is to be able to continue offering opportunities to all students from all over the country, and to keep in mind that every child is unique, that we don't need to make it so that it's an elite organization, an elite competition. We need to keep in mind that we need to have opportunities for everybody. Every child learns something from Science Olympiad.
Well, at this point in time, I have taken many different roles, and Science Olympiad has been near and dear to me the whole time since in the mid-'80s. It provides students opportunities to engage in science at a depth and at a level that they otherwise wouldn't get in a regular curriculum. Currently, I'm superintendent of the school district. Behind me, the logo of District 56, which is Lawrence County School District 56. I mean, we're a community of about 8,000 people. And now as superintendent of the district, our community over the nearly now 40 years, they have bought into the identity of Science Olympiad. Our community has put up banners that locate and say state champions. We go by sort of the moniker SCSC, Science City, South Carolina. I think Science Olympiad has persisted because of Gerard and Sharon Putz. I think they, and along with Jack Carnes, created something that was synergistic. It had a power beyond its ability on paper. And now with Jenny Kopak taking over, yet seeing the impact that it's had in lives. My wish for Science Olympiad in the future is to continue to draw from the roots of the exposure and love given to it by those who created it. It really was an incredibly novel idea by Dr. Putz and by Sharon and by Jack Carnes to create something that would highlight academic competition in a competitive and yet collegial manner. A lot of our coaches in Clement are not teachers. They are members of the community who give of themselves. The chairman of our school board is an electrical engineer, and he coaches our detector building team. And it's this idea of having people with experiences that then can be used to make, and that to me is a benefit.
I first got involved in Science Olympiad when my oldest daughter was in the 6th grade, and I showed up at practice one day and asked her coach if I could help in any way. and somehow the next year I was the coach. And that was probably about 25 years ago. So I've been the coach of both teams since then. It allows our students to recognize that they're part of a puzzle that will ultimately come together to change the world. We have over 25 community members that come in and coach our teams every week. And then those same people work with the students and travel with the students and celebrate with the students when it's a good result and try to figure out what went wrong when it's a bad result. And those relationships and those connections have lasted for a very, very long time. Science Olympiad has adapted to the changes in the environment. We've gone from doing things with rubber bands and strings to doing things with robotics. And our kids are seeing the constant relevance in what they're learning. My wish would be for it to stay here. I hope it keeps adapting and changing as it has. And I hope more and more students become involved in it and it becomes even bigger and better than it is now.
And in 1984, I had just graduated from Newberry College in 1982. Knew nothing about the Science Olympiad, and I learned about the Science Olympiad from Dr. George J. Renwick, who was a former biology professor at Newberry College and also the state tournament director for South Carolina. He actually told me about the Science Olympiad. I was very interested. We'd never done anything like that. So after hearing about it, I was very excited about the possibility of starting a team at Bell Street Middle School, which was a very small middle school in the upstate of South Carolina. The kids are beginning to see that with Science Olympiad, they need to know those facts in order to actually apply their skills in many of the building events. And that really makes it fun. So really their perception of science and their enthusiasm for science as a result of Science Olympiad. Another thing is it promotes diversity. In addition to that, there are so many enthusiastic students as well as coaches. I've had a number of parents who are not even remotely interested in science, but they're interested in building events. And they volunteer to participate as coaches. And because of that enthusiasm and the leadership from both the national and state levels, I think Science Olympiad has lasted for that long and will continue.
I first met Dr. Gerard Putz when I was a graduate student at Eastern Michigan University. And he and one of his fellow teachers, Vern Marl, were in a workshop next to me, and they kept coming and borrowing equipment from me. So I got to know both Gerard and Vern very well that summer. When I finished my master's degree, then they helped me get a job teaching advanced biology in the same high school that Vern Marl was teaching in, and he was my department chair until he retired in 1997. And so I had the benefit of working at the national level in Science Olympiad since it very began. Taking the real world that kids live in and applying scientific principles to what they're already doing helps them make those important relationships. And that's always been a goal for us. And it just so thrilling for me personally to connect with those kids in their professional careers, because I'm known as the biology lady across Science Olympiad. And so when I go to a Science Olympiad tournament, I'm often, for one weekend of a year, a rock star. I have kids stop and ask me to take pictures, to do autographs, to give them stories, or they'll share stories with me They'll share with me all the friends they've made from other schools. And it's just an amazing experience for me to be involved with so many kids across the country. What I think the best things about Science Olympiad are is that it helps relate what the kids are experiencing in the real world to how we organize science in the scientific community. I think that's the reason why Science Olympiad has been so successful over the last 40 years. So what I would like to see in the future is that we continue to be very aware of what's happening in the world of education.
I became involved with the Science Olympiad program around 1986. The effect on students, in my opinion, is that there's a grateful understanding of that you learn things because you want to know. It turns out to be a beautiful, opportunistic thing for all kids and for teaching and for getting kids to be better than they would have been if you didn't give them the chance to do it. My personal interest in this has never waned. I retired 19 years ago from the Department of Education in Orange County. I had a hunger to go ahead and have that wonderful part of that, which was giving something you know and you love so well yourself, to get it to make sure that it happens for other kids. It allows kids to do things that they never would have done before in a wonderful way. So it ignites me. It makes me feel wonderful. And so after 19 years, I'm still after it. I'm not retired, I'm just redirected. Good things don't go away unless they're really good. They don't do something unless they motivate people to go ahead and be better at what they are.
I really first got involved through my job with DuPont. I worked in what was called the Office of Education, and we were one of the early corporate funders of Science Olympiad. Jack Cairns, one of the co-founders, was a native Delawarean, and we had done a lot of work with him within the state. So it was sort of a natural transition to put some financial support into the Science Olympiad. To this day, I am amazed that people I meet in their 30s and 40s talk about their experiences with Science Olympiad. I had the honor as a corporate sponsor to participate in the national tournaments and give medals out at the award ceremony. And to watch how excited these young people were to have achieved something of this magnitude was incredibly rewarding. That it continues to get the kind of support that it has from other corporations, from teachers, and from school districts.
David Roselle, the president of the University of Delaware, came into my office one day and said, "Hey, look, the DuPont Corporation wants to celebrate its 200th anniversary in 2002. They'd like to have the Science Olympiad National Tournament here at the University of Delaware, and you're in charge." But I always remember what Gerard told me when we started to work on Science Olympiad. Any student can find one of the events in Science Olympiad to become proficient with. I think the effect on students has been profound. Personally, for me, I made some fabulous friendships. There was no question for me as an administrator to organize an entire campus around an enterprise that most people on campus didn't know anything about, and to marshal faculty, student volunteers, colleague administrators. The real persistence of the leadership, I think, is really part and parcel of the 40 years worth of Science Olympiad. There's no question. I want to see that leadership absolutely extended into the future to ensure that Science Olympiad is in play for another 40 years.
First Olympiad was in 1983 at Delaware State College. I think it brought me closer to the students. It was especially helpful in connecting with students who had lots of talent but were not high academic achievers. It was also a good source of activities to help my students. Write It, Do It was one of my favorites for getting students to be observant and to write clearly. Additionally, it helped me to connect with colleagues all over the state and later the country. In a time when curricula are designed to be one size fits all, Olympiad allows students to pursue their own interests in an academic atmosphere. I could go on, with a long list of how I wound up going from a student required to attend an Olympiad on campus to getting to know Jack Cairns and getting involved as a coach and then an event supervisor and then on the state committee, and I'm still on the state board.
I first got involved in Science Olympiad when one of my sister universities here in Northwest Indiana had trouble getting an event supervisor for the Crime Buster event. And they reached out to the chemistry department over here at IU Northwest and asked, will anybody help? And I said, sure, I love doing this sort of thing. That was about 30 years ago, so I'm one of the newer old guard. One of the teams of students from that school won the wheeled vehicle competition that year. The net result was that the team members got full ride scholarships to the University of Florida. They would have been totally unable to go to the university at all if it had not been for that full ride scholarship. I have enjoyed my entire time with Science Olympiad thoroughly. I have enjoyed being on the chemistry committee. I have enjoyed doing all of the coaches' clinics. I have enjoyed being the chemistry chairman of the chairman of the chemistry committee. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. It is one of the main reasons that I am still teaching, although I'm 76 years old, full time, because I know that I would have to give up Science Olympiad because I wouldn't have the resources to handle it if I were not still teaching. And that's how much I love Science Olympiad. Making science fun for students so that they realize that science is not just book learning, that it is dynamic, that it is fun. I think Science Olympiad has persisted for the last 40 years because of the quality of the programming, the excellence of the people who founded it, the excellence of the people that they brought in to help them, and the excellence of the program in general and its ability to change with the times and grow as things are learned. One of the biggest strengths of Science Olympiad is that it's an all-volunteer organization. Volunteers are what makes it great and what's going to make it grow, and they're going to determine how it grows in the future.